Hi, everyone. I'm Fiona Edgar. Welcome to the second episode of the No BS Pagan podcast. I'm an astrologer, a writer, a podcaster from Northern Ireland. I'm also a polytheist. This is my lovely co host, Tina Kemp. Tina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Tina, and I mostly do runes and make them. That's really all there is to say.
Oh, I think you're too modest, Tina. You're too modest. There's a lot more to you than just runes. I know that. Okay, so today we thought that we'd get a little bit dark and talk about. Tina and I have had some private conversations about some of this stuff because we both have had experience with the issues that we're going to talk about today. So, we're going to talk about curses, psychic attacks, entity attachments, possessions, and all of that interesting stuff. So there's a lot of new age garbage out there. You know, a lot of the new agers will say there's no such thing as negative spirits, which is just the most appalling thing that I've ever heard. There's no such thing as curses, and all of that. So, um, say something again, Tina. I couldn't hear you there.
Oh, no, I
Oh,
was silently agreeing there.
oh, right. Okay. All right. Well, let's just get to it then. So we were going to talk about curses. Tell us about your personal experience that you've had with that.
Well, what really made me want to talk about this in the first place is that I saw a video that somebody shared about a guy saying that you need to have an expert help you with that. And I found it to be completely untrue. First, it's these people want money, basically. And the only person that can help you get rid of a curse is yourself. There is no point in trying to get rid of a curse using all the frivolous things like magic working, talismans, and all of that stuff. You have to find the dark spot within yourself, and that is where that curse will attach itself to. And my personal experience with it is that I once actually cursed somebody, which is unfortunate, and I shouldn't have done it, but I did. I was at a very bad point in my life. I was going straight to rock bottom, and it could have turned out two ways for me. Either that curse would have completely backfired and I would have hit rock bottom anyway, or it would have worked and I would be able to crawl myself out of it. And fortunately for me, that is what happened, because also that person had it coming. I mean, I am deeply convinced that that person did something to me, which which took away something from me, from my personal energy, from my soul, if you will, and that is how I got it back, in a nutshell.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was doing left-hand path work and, really experimenting with a lot of kind of stupid paths over the years, like before I just, discovered alchemy and ancestral stuff. So, I mean, I've done it. I've done it too. I at the time I did feel like, they deserved it, but they probably didn't, and it did backfire massively. However, I will say that sometimes it is warranted. Uh, the only way to do it without any kind of backlash is using your ancestral path, your ancestral gods, and making sure that it is 100% warranted in the first place. And there's no other way that you can kind of balance the scales without using magic. Um, and also, if you do too many curses, you really affect your own luck. your ability to manifest anything in your life, things will just go wrong for you because you have that energy within yourself. So have I done it? Have I done it since then? Yes, but it was absolutely warranted. This person really, really harmed me, and they were trying to harm my family. And I used the runes, right? No backlash whatsoever. And yes, it did work. So I think that there's this, I guess, even a type of curiosity with people when they, first start on the path of the occultist, and they want to see what they can do to others. But they quickly find that if they act like children and misuse the occult arts, then their lives go to shit. And I've seen it happen over and over again.
That person who I cursed, that is also the reason why I never did it again, because it worked so fast and with such ferocity that it was almost scary. The things that happened to that person afterwards, his life completely fell apart, was wanted by Interpol at a certain moment. I don't even know how that happened, but it happened in that same time frame. And I don't think that he, up to this day, he's completely recovered, because it was maybe 3 to 4 years ago that I saw him by accident on the street, and he looked bad, but really bad, like this dark clouds over him, as if his soul had turned into a black hole, sucking all the daylight out of the air around him. It was pretty awful to see, but I couldn't bring myself to feel any kind of compassion or empathy towards him.
Yeah. And on some level, then it was warranted, because it didn't make you like that. Your life didn't go to shit.
No, it's better.
Yeah. So he did deserve that in a karmic level, and that's how you know. So yeah, there always is some kind of degree of, like, for example, the one and only time that I've ever used it while I was on my ancestral path, the next day things were breaking around me. Like stones, dishes, weird shit was happening. And I knew that was the effect of, the energy was still on me. So you have to clear it afterwards. But you were totally correct in something that you said, in that if someone curses you. Now, I've had so many people try to curse me now, it's not even funny, because I've been involved in occult circles. People have grudges, exes and all of that. But after a while, whenever you become so strong in yourself and you don't believe that, anyone can harm you, and most importantly, you're under the protection of your ancestral gods, they can't get to you.
No, it is absolutely possible to erect this sort of spiritual barrier around yourself that it falls off you like Teflon. It has no effect whatsoever. And I've had people try to curse me as well. And some people, it was more an unconscious thing with them, but I knew it was coming from them. And then I always know when somebody does something like that to me, because weird things start to happen around the house, but really strange things, like something just flying off the shelf out of nowhere. My cat also seems to be very sensitive to energy. And when that sort of energy is directed at me, it seems to attract entities as well. And I start to see more of them. And it's not particularly scary or anything, because these things just don't scare me. But I notice it. I notice it every time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, is that there are always going to be warning signs when you've been hit with some kind of negative energy. And actually, it's funny, but like last winter, when a lot of us were in lockdowns and everything was all messed up, is that things were happening around the atmosphere to everyone that was almost like a big kind of collective curse. For me, the number one sign is that I will stumble or fall over. That's the only time that I will fall, even though I wear ridiculous heels most of the time. but I'll just stumble or slip something. The symbolism of that is that something is trying to, unground me. The other thing would be nightmares. I never ever have nightmares unless it's a warning or, sort of like some kind of a premonition or psychic attack. Other things that might happen would be stuff breaking around me. You're doing the dishes and you smash a glass or a plate by accident, you cut yourself. And also I will see foxes. I'll see foxes on the internet or else outside. Because, I love foxes, but they know that's a sign for me that I need to be aware that something is trying to stalk me or hunt me.
It's the hawk for me. Whenever I see a hawk, it's a bad sign for me personally. Well, a bad sign, a warning sign.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I think the animals will all mean different things for each of us. Another thing can be, and this really only tends to happen when your physical health is very low, because that in itself will make you more susceptible to curses or negative energy. So if you have a really unhealthy diet, you're drinking all the time, whatever, you will be way more prone to psychic and spiritual attacks because your actual auric fields will be weakened by that.
You will become very vulnerable. You can, I have noticed this with alcoholics, that it's not the booze itself, but the booze makes the psychic firewall, as Thomas would put it, so low that you can literally see when it starts to happen, when the entity starts to take over. And it's almost like these entities are constantly hanging around an alcoholic or a severe drug abuser, and they're just waiting. And they're constantly prodding at that person, like, come on, have another hit, come on, have another drink, you want to. So the urge starts to come, and then you give into it, and then that entity, so people that have a complete personality switch when they use or when they drink, it's very real.
Very real. That's the thing about entity possession, can be very subtle in that it appears to be a natural trait or problem, that is just like connected to that person and not to an entity. But one of the ways that kind of possession or attachment can affect you is by making you want to drink all the time, making you want to take drugs, making you addicted to porn. And that has become such a huge issue because porn sites are free now. Teenagers can access them, and there are very specific beings that will feed off this sexual energy that is not going anywhere. It's not going to another person. So they will make that person like become addicted to pornography. And then, of course, it affects their relationships. They get a totally unrealistic view of sex, and it's so destructive, especially when it's a teenager.
It drains men, a porn addiction. I have known men with a porn addiction, and it is awful to see. They become so listless in everything. And it's very subtle, like you say. And it's awful to see because it's day by day and so subtle, and all of a sudden they are just this, like a lifeless sack of potatoes, almost. Oh, it's pretty awful, very insidious also.
Yeah, and of course that has been a huge trap in the modern age, because our pagan ancestors knew that to create your, a business, a family, an empire, that sexual relations between a man and a woman was a very powerful ritual. So when someone is addicted to watching porn or even like casual sex or whatever, they have no ability to create anything in their life because they're draining their own magical potency away from themselves.
Yeah, giving it away basically and getting nothing in return.
Yeah. Which is why I think there has been such a big push to normalize, you know, casual sex, porn, promiscuity, all of that, because they're depleting themselves. They're also, you know, that natural instinct that a man would have to protect, to go to war if he needed. When you're doing certain things all the time, that natural inclination is just drained away from them.
Yeah, you simply don't have the energy anymore. Also, women, lots of casual sex and promiscuity is very damaging for a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had my wild years when I was younger, and I noticed that myself, like, this is not good. It's a drain on your self-esteem, on your soul. Actually, you don't feel like a full person anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that Thomas said that a couple of times, that as a woman, that you keep the DNA of the man in your brain if you have unprotected sex. And I believe there is something to that, because who has the most unprotected sex? It's women that are not psychologically balanced, and it seems like a vicious cycle to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And of course, in this age of wokeness, or, you know, darkness, it's not a fashionable or a popular thing to say that, you know, promiscuity is unhealthy, but it absolutely is. It's spiritually unhealthy as well, because if someone has, you know, negative energy or spirit attachment or whatever, if you have sex with that person, it will be passed on to you. And one manifestation of that would be an STD. Because our ancestors knew that when you have, you know, sickness in your body, disease, it's actually the manifestation of something spiritual. It's a spiritual problem. So all of these people, and they have, you know, they're going from one partner to the next, and they don't have any real connection with them. You know, there's nothing heart-centered, really. It's just all about getting their rocks off. And then they, you know, their personalities start to change because they pick up different spirits, you know, different DNA from all of these. It's just not a good thing to do at all.
There is no benefit for you personally to do that. Not in the long run.
Definitely.
Not in the short run.
No, there really isn't. I mean, I think it's something that really should be avoided. And it really pains me now to see, like, if you click on or read magazines that are targeted towards teenage girls, it's all about sex. There's so much sex in it. I mean, it's totally wrong. It's normalizing it for them, and then they're unhappy, they're feeling used, and nothing good can come of that. But of course, it's all part of the plan to turn us into broken degenerates, you know, filled with ancestral trauma, negative entities, keeping the big pharma industries going, and you know, it's a nightmare.
No, I do believe that is done by design, all of it.
Yeah, I do as well. But, you know, there is a backlash against that. I mean, doing readings for people every day all around the world, I've noticed that a lot of folks who were born in the late 90s are really, really awake and actually really returning or wanting to return to a more traditional way of life. And it's really encouraging to see, because, I don't know, people born in the 80s to the late 80s seem to be very lost in particular.
Yeah, I think people born in the 90s, it's hard to explain why that is. Maybe those people were just young or old enough to remember it differently, and there is something in them that tells them that they were happier then, because they certainly don't seem to find happiness in a modern lifestyle, and we're constantly unhappy and depressed. you're never going to even want to better yourself or become stronger or become healthier. It's a very sad thing.
Yeah. So I think the best ways to stop yourself from being affected by negative entities, curses and that kind of thing. And it's important to recognize that even if you're not an occultist and you don't know any occultists, you're still being cursed by the TV, movies, which are just a portal for stuff like that to come through, the news that you watch every day, the unhealthy, popular TV shows, movies. But the best way to protect yourself is, first of all, and I know I always say this, but it's the truth, it's to make friends with your ancestral gods, because they can protect you before, anything even happens. The second thing is to always try and have a good spiritual practice. Do your rituals, give offerings to your gods, avoid drugs, avoid alcohol, because those two things in particular are really going to weaken your physical body, which will then make you susceptible. Do you have any more things to add to that?
Yes, salt. That has been the one thing for me that has been a fail-safe. Whenever I feel not very confident in my spiritual practices, it does happen sometimes. And salt seems to be an anchor for me. I have it everywhere in my house, except when I am doing my rituals.
Yeah.
Then it
And a salt bath feels really cleansing.
Yeah, especially around my bed. I have it everywhere because I seem to be very prone to nightmares.
Okay.
My dreams are extremely vivid, and it has always been the case. And I have the feeling that is when I'm at that my psychic firewall is at its lowest. It's when I'm asleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's just the same idea, really. Drawing the algae runes energetically on my walls every night, and kind of making some almost like an electrical fence that nothing can get through. But yeah, salt is great. I mean, smudging, I would use smudging more for if someone's had an argument, or there's been a lot of stress in the home. I would give it a quick smudge. But in terms of things like curses and all of that, it's not really effective, because when someone curses you, it's actually right in your energy field.
Yeah, smudging alone won't work with the curse.
No,
it really won't.
No.
What I have noticed is that it helps clear. Whenever somebody throws that sort of energy at you and it starts to attract entities in your house or near you, it helps to get rid of those. But if you don't do anything to protect yourself from that energy that is directly directed to you, it will keep coming back. It's just a Band-Aid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One method that I found to be quite effective is that if I can feel something on me, whether it's the evil eye or some venom from a jealous person or whatever, I think that when you're aware, you can actually feel it. You can feel it on you. So what I do is I actually channel the energy from the sun. I put my hands out, visualize the sun streaming through the top of my head, out through my hands, and then I just hover it over my body, and it will dissolve whatever it is that's got in there. I mean, I know there's Reiki and all of that. I'm not a fan, because for one thing, if you're a white European, Reiki is not an ancestral practice, and therefore you do not have the protection of your ancestors when you're doing Reiki. So when you're passing energy back and forth, the entities get a field day from that, because they're just pushing back and forth between the two people. So I think that if you're going to do any kind of energy work, channel the energy from the sun, the moon, There are constellations up there that you can channel energy from, you know, Orion. And I found that to be effective.
I have a different visualization technique. It's not really channeling, I think, but I imagine myself surrounded by a mirror or an egg made of mirrors that reflect outwards. It's not my problem where that energy gets directed back to. Either it gets directed into nothingness and dissolves itself that way naturally, or it gets reflected back to the person. It's simply not my problem. If it gets reflected back to the person, that's, yeah, well, a them problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, if you want to be, you know, someone's trying to hurt you, then you can always add, like if you visualize the mirror around you, add a few spikes, add a few thorns, and, you know, that will teach them. I think the New Age in particular has really taught that we should all be pacifists, you know, which New Age is obviously just another branch of Christianity, but you know, there's this whole thing, oh, don't defend yourself, send them love and light, and, you know, come on, that shit doesn't work. That's like having someone break into your home, you know, a total psychopath, and saying I love you, or, you know, giving them a hug. It's not going to fucking work. Sometimes you have to be mean, you have to be nasty, you have to be a fucking warrior. Otherwise you're just weakening yourself, you're putting your family at risk. So don't be afraid to use weapons, spiritual weaponry, which I think is where the whole idea of the shield maiden came from mostly, because shamans have always used energetic weapons. You know, a shaman can visualize a spear or a sword or whatever. He can make that with energy that comes from his hands. So back in that culture, you know, Old Norse culture, it was the women that did the magic, you know, Seidr, which is a form of shamanism, and they would defend their home magically. But of course, we've lost most of that knowledge now.
I seem to be coming on to a lot of that information lately, and it just seems to come naturally, which I find is a very cool thing. It comes when it needs to come. I find that very cool.
Yeah, that's that. I've noticed that a lot of people who are on their ancestral path will get that reawakening of ancestral wisdom. And, you know, it's everything that our ancestors knew will just suddenly, you know, it'll come into your head. You'll just know it because it's not being diluted or blocked out from Abrahamism or the New Age.
That whole New Age push in the media is also something I find insidious. I find it evil. If I have a word on it, because it doesn't work. It will never work. It is all bullshit, in my opinion, all of it. Love and light. I mean, have you seen some of those love and light types? They are the furthest away from love and light that I could possibly ever imagine. Some of them are downright evil.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't seem to be self-aware at all. That when they are very venomous, very hostile, very, very attacking towards another person that simply disagrees with them, for that matter, the beast inside shows itself like there's no tomorrow. And I find that one of the most fascinating things to see. But also, I find it fascinating, but also, I don't want to say scary because it's not scary. It's just confronting. That's the word. I'm very, very strange thing to see.
Yeah. New Agers are some of the most messed up people that I've ever met. They're usually riddled with entities because they do all of these stupid, you know, channeling practices. They don't believe in demons or whatever. So they don't use any protection. And, you know, quite often they will have these horrible entities and, you know, they attack people. That's something that I've noticed, is that they love going for authentic people. If you're in a room full of New Agers and, you know, you're on your ancestral path, they'll go, she's dark, you know, she curses people. And I've had that over and over again. And these are some of the shittiest people that I have ever met. And actually, my best friend, we met years ago in a New Age group, and they completely turned on her. And because I knew what was going on, I was the only one that stuck up for her. So that's how we became friends. But I had dreadful experiences in those groups. Were you ever a member of any New Age kind of circles or groups?
Oh, mostly bad experiences. I cannot really recall ever being part of any groups because, it's okay. When I was younger, I was subscribed to some witchcraft forums, but then quickly it becomes less witchcraft oriented, but more Wicca oriented, and they have the same problem basically. They're all about the love and light. It's half of the time they don't even know what they're talking about when they are talking about something. I heard somebody say that runes should never be tattooed on you. Like, what? Yes, I mean that. Yeah, well, that's exactly being etched into something means that it is a permanent symbol, a symbol that is meant to be somewhere permanent. What is that different from a tattoo, or stuff like that? And they will swarm on you like flies on shit.
Mm-hmm.
It,
Yeah. Yeah.
so now I just stay away from these groups because I had enough experiences with them. I know where this will end. It will never go anywhere productive or constructive. It will always sooner or later turn to be wokeism. And they just use the spirituality as a means to convey the wokeism.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't stand it. It's all political to me. Wokeism is a political agenda. I find it profane. It should not be confused for spirituality. And I loathe the people, and there are plenty of them on YouTube, that want to interject the political agenda into spiritual practices and misleading a lot of young people.
Yeah.
I won't mention names, but I'm sure you know of a few too.
Yeah, well, we're in the minority because we practice authentic polytheism, which is folkish. And that goes against the wokeness of the New Agers, which essentially is cultural Marxism. So these idiots actually think that they know better than many generations of ancestors that came way before them. They were all folkish. All the tribes had their own gods. It was for a reason. It wasn't fucking racism. It's because those gods would not work for another tribe. You know, it's in your blood, it's in your DNA. But of course, it's not popular to say that because people are afraid of being called racist. You know, well, I'm not. I'm not afraid of it. I know I'm not a racist. I'm not going to sit here and water myself down or pretend to be something that I'm not because some loony with pink hair is going to send me a hate mail. You know, I don't care. But yeah, it's cultural Marxism. The New Agers are, you know, they're just as bad because they believe in, you know, the one God, which is Abrahamism, and, you know, all of that loony shit.
Only Abrahamism is monotheistic.
Yeah.
There are no other religions that are monotheistic. The Egyptians tried it, and it ended up causing absolute chaos to their society. With what's his name was specific.
Akhenaten.
Yeah, that's him. He's always as an ugly man.
Yeah. Yeah, extremely ugly and deformed, actually. Very, very odd looking. I think that there's a lot more going on with that story than we know about or that meets the eye.
Oh, it would be worth looking into.
Yeah, you know, some would say that the whole Akhenaten movement from monotheism never really went away. It just kind of moved over, and then eventually it reemerged again as Christianity and all of that. But it's such an unbalanced, unnatural system that, well, we already talked about this, but we're seeing the effects of it now because people are cowards.
It is unhealthy for the human psyche because it has no, it does not reflect the human psyche. And so we are constantly trying to live up to an ideal that we know we will never be able to, because we are not ideal. We are meant to be imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. That's the way we are supposed to be. Because if we were perfect, then why would we even exist?
Yeah, it's true. It's all part of the human experience, is to make mistakes and grow. Yeah, I mean, well, that brings me to another point, is that another a method that most people should use to protect themselves from not just black magic or anything like that, but really to protect against the bombardment of lies that we are subjected to living in the modern world. And that is to try and be an honorable person. Because if if you lie, cheat, if you betray others, if you don't have any loyalty, then you're way more susceptible to that shit, because honor acts as a shield against that.
If you go about your life being dishonorable, you invite curses into your life. And in some cases, they may very well be very, very warranted.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that I heard, over the in stupid new age circles, is that they would blame someone for bringing the negative energy in with them, which is the most fucking it's so asinine. Like, they have zero occult knowledge, because it doesn't work like that. If you're picking up on the negative energy, then there's something within you that's resonating with that, or your psychic shades are shitty, or you're a shitty person. But they would blame like really innocent people, for bringing in negative energies and spiritualist circles. I've seen it all, really, but they have no knowledge of how this stuff actually works.
It's the entity in them. The entity in them, that is the exact same reason why they don't believe in negative entities, because the negative entity in them tells them they don't exist.
Yeah.
Who benefits there?
Exactly. Yeah. And then they come to people like us when, shit's getting real in their home, and the pictures are starting to sway by themselves, and the fridge doors opening and closing. And they're like, oh, who's going to help us? Oh, we'll go to that fucking dark occultist with the Valknut tattooed on her hands.
I have had people come to me for that kind of help.
Yeah.
But I also think that I never will ask money. If somebody comes to me with a problem, they explain their problem and say, like, what do you suggest I should do? I've never asked for money, and I never will, because I truly believe that this sort of knowledge was commonplace at a certain time. And if I would be asking money for it just to give my opinion on what is happening or what I would do in their place, that would be inviting a shitload of negative karma for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you did make a good point when we started this podcast about there are a lot of charlatans out there that, if you pay them, $500 or whatever, that they can get rid of this curse from you or this attachment. And it is so wrong, because, like you say, the only person that can get rid of this problem is yourself, because there's something about you that it's connecting with. It's fear. Maybe you had a traumatic childhood. That's what happened in my own childhood, is that we had a problem with terrorism, and I didn't know their names. So I had that fear and trauma within me that I never healed. So then when I went onto the path of occultism, well, what happens? A lot of spirits had an absolute field day with me, scaring me and all of that. So no one else can heal that. Your susceptibility to a psychic attack is all about how you feel about yourself inside. Do you feel strong? Do you feel like you're, a confident person? You're not full of trauma. If you're healthy that way, they won't be able to get to you.
You should be very careful if you start to have these doubts. Am I cursed?
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe not yet.
Yeah.
But you're inviting it now.
Mm-hmm.
You start to have these doubts about yourself. It's like, why am I always having bad luck? Why always this? Why always that? Woe me. No, be very careful with that, because it will accumulate and it will go from bad to worse if you let it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
About that, by the way, what you said about these people that want you to pay €500 for their services, what they don't tell you is that it's a subscription service. It's like a priest coming to bless your house. It won't work if it just comes once, blesses your house, throwing some holy water around. No. You'll have to come back every week, and eventually he'll want this.
Mm-hmm.
Be careful with those people.
Yes, because they're not telling them, if someone comes to me and they say, okay, I'm having problems with an entity in my home, what do I do? But I'm not there. They're in another country. Well, first of all, the best way to take care of that is by you fixing it yourself. It's not really someone else coming to your home. So what I would do is I would set up my altar to Thor. I would give him an offering, some mead, and I would say, Thor, can you please take care of this shit for me? And there's not an entity that will ever be stronger than Thor. These are some weak ass demons or jinns or whatever. And when it comes to a god, they can't compete.
No, and most of these hauntings, or when you start to see things flying off the shelves or knocking on the walls and hearing voices, that is exactly what you say, usually a low-level demon.
Mm-hmm.
Because can you imagine an actual powerful demon bothering with shit like that? Let's go taunt this human because I have nothing better to do.
Yeah. And then they can grow a bit from the fear and the anxiety that they're causing, but it's so easy to get rid of them. But it can never be from some voodoo priest in Africa when you're like Irish and you're living in County Cork, and this stuff's going on. You have to reach out to your ancestral gods, or you have to make them fear you. If you use your own energy as a weapon, like we say, shield your aura, cover it with spikes, thorns, nothing is going to come near you because then it will get hurt. So eventually it will leave.
Making yourself scary to what is essentially a lesser life form shouldn't be too hard.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to believe it yourself, because if there's doubt in you, no, that's not a good thing. Because eventually, they can play on your subconscious. They can really fuck with you too. So if you're not confident in your ability to make yourself scary to this entity, this energetic life form, make sure you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's all about, your spiritual health, physical health, believing in yourself, because it's like, I know we've all heard that story of the boy or the girl that was bullied in school, and, they were getting beaten up by this big, kind of tyrant that was a couple of years older than them. And then one day they cracked and they beat the shit out of them. And, that bully never messed with them again. It's the same thing. But if you you quiver and you hand over your lunch money, and you're praying to Jesus to help, and that it's going to make a meal out of you.
Like painting a target on your forehead.
Yes.
Don't
Yeah.
do it. That's also why you shouldn't be thinking love and light towards the people that wish you harm, because they certainly don't wish it towards you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Best thing is just to not think of them ever again.
That works. And that has worked for me with people that have maybe consciously, maybe subconsciously tried to curse me. I don't really care whether it was conscious or not. But yeah, ignoring them seems to drive these people insane.
Yeah. It's the same thing, it's the same if you have a smear campaign against you. And you and I have both kind of experienced this. I think anyone doing podcasts or videos will have mentally ill people on the internet, calling them names and harassing them. I mean, that in itself to me is a form of a spiritual attack. So that's why the best thing that you can ever do is just to not respond to them, because any healthy human being who actually values themselves does not go around insulting other people that they don't know on the internet and talking about them behind their back. I mean, it's pathetic. I've got better things to do with my day than think of, people that I don't know.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, if I also think that it is a sign that you are probably doing what is right for you on your soul path, that if you have these kind of harassers, because they wouldn't be there otherwise. If you were already on a self-destructive path, yeah, you would also invite trolls, but it would be different. They wouldn't be coming after you personally.
Mm-hmm.
They would be calling you. I mean, there is a difference to me between a troll and somebody that harasses, that comes after you personally because they have a personal gripe with you for reasons imagined. Because I think there's these sort of people that do that. I think that they see somebody like us and they know that in their own psyche that they are not like us, but they wish they were.
Yeah. Yeah. And they become, instead of working on self-improvement, trying to, make something of themselves or just, do that self-work. It's easier to point and say she's a witch kind of thing. But, eventually this is where honor comes into it again. You're doing your spiritual practices, your own luck, or haminya. If someone attacks you, if someone talks about you behind your back or fucks you over, you have a spirit that is going to take care of that without you having to lift a finger. And I've experienced that. I'm not going to talk about all of it, and I'm not saying, oh, I'm great or fantastic or whatever. Like, everyone should be like this, and a lot of people are. But I've had people that have betrayed me. Their electricity goes off and on. I've had people that their cars were just completely fucked for no reason. And they all tried to harm me. They get chucked out of their home. They lose their job. And that will happen if you're an honorable person and you do the right thing and you don't lie and you don't try and fuck people over for money. That will start to happen by itself because it's your own behavior that really dictates a lot of your own spiritual power.
Yeah, I have seen people go completely nuts after trying to psychically attack me and me not doing anything about it. Well, I have my circle of protection around me, but other than that, I don't do anything about it. No reaction, no response. And the shit that these people started to talk about me on their social media kept escalating and escalating and escalating until they themselves started to look as the only asshole in the situation. So do I need to do anything? Some of these people accuse me of cursing them. But I mean, let's be honest, you're the only person that's cursing anyone here is yourself. You should take a really hard look, long look in the mirror, because that pathetic creature that is staring back at you, that is who cursed you.
Yes.
A bit harsh words, but
that's the truth, you know, and people need to hear that, because we live in a society where weakness is glorified, and it's always, you know, it's always someone else's fault. You know, people don't take responsibility for themselves anymore. And yeah, I have done shitty things to other people in the past. I'll fully admit that. You know, I'm 40 years old now. I've learned a lot, but my life back then was nowhere near as good as it is now. And I do try my best to be a good person, because I like other people. I don't want to see them suffer, but also I'm not going to do that to myself.
Yeah. It does put a scar over your own soul when you go around being an asshole to other people. And I have done it too. I have not been a good person in the past. I would go as far as to say that I was downright evil to some people. And yeah, I do have regrets about that. But yeah, I mean, regrets about that. The only thing I can do now is not do that again.
Mm-hmm.
Say sorry where sorry is due, and when the time for sorry has passed, is just make sure that I don't do it to someone else.
Yeah, and we're all human. You know, we all make mistakes, but I think the important thing is that you kind of, you know, you grow from that, especially when you're an occultist, because what I've noticed is that if you're a shitty person when you're an occultist, you will get walloped by, you know, some kind of spiritual force like instantly, because it's like attracts like, you know, the whatever you do in this reality, the spirit world is going to reflect that to you. So you know, you also get people that claim to be totally plagued by evil spirits all the time and stuff, but they're doing a lot of shitty things in their lives, and they don't ever make the connection. I think that we all need to have some self-responsibility instead of looking for other people to blame.
Maybe these people need to hit rock bottom first.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like that for me. I was almost there, rock bottom. So that's when it started to get better for me. Partially due to not so nice actions on my behalf, but yeah, it is what it is. I have made videos about it, about that episode where I cursed somebody, and it is true that it is, you should, if you do it, don't ever feel sorry for the person.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. Because that will not be good for you. Because if you start to question yourself and start to think that you were the bad guy in the situation, it will come back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, you should avoid it as much as possible, but sometimes it's a matter of honor, you know, and you kind of need to get even. I mean, it doesn't happen. Yes, we should all like rise above it, but I don't believe in turning the other cheek. You know, I believe that if someone attacks me, I have to defend myself, and the only way that I can do that is with magic. Then I'm going to do it. And I'll use runes or something connected to my ancestral path so that it's supported, and I will not feel a moment of regret about doing it.
No, it's the same with love spells. When people do that to me, and it has happened, I would treat that the same as a curse.
Mm-hmm.
I find it a very nasty way of using magic. Very manipulative.
Yeah. Yeah. Any magic that you do against another person, even if you're asking for something good to happen to them, is black magic, because you're interfering in their personal free will. So if you're, you know, doing a ritual for, this to happen to someone else, but you haven't asked their permission, then it's black magic and you're going to pay the karmic price for interfering with their free will.
Yeah, that's why I don't like people saying to me, I will pray for you. No, thank you.
Yeah. Keep your nasty prayers away from me, thanks. I don't need them.
It doesn't even feel like a good thing anyway. It seems like a passive-aggressive curse.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Well, I've never had anyone say that to me yet, but you know, hopefully they don't, because it is a form of curse. It's just manipulating energy and sending like negative shit towards another person.
Yeah, but people say that to you, it's not because they really want anything good to happen to you anyway. They want to invoke the wrath of God.
Yeah.
More than that.
Yeah, well, too bad their God doesn't have any power, so they can pray all they want. It's not going to affect me in the slightest, because I'm not from the Middle East, you know, I'm Irish. And
yeah, your demon God doesn't like to be hired as your personal hitman anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Might be more bad for you if you try that.
Exactly. Well, that's kind of bringing us towards the end of the hour. Do you have anything else that you want to talk about or add to?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, so where can people find you again? I will add the links to the bottom.
If it's about runes and you want to order a set, it's really best to go to the Facebook page, because it has a business suite, and that's easy for me. The messages don't get overlooked, or they don't get buried, or I tend to notice that a lot quicker than a DM to my personal Facebook. If it's about anything else, feel free to send me a DM over Instagram, MeWe, Facebook. Say hi if you feel like it. If not, then don't.
Okay, well, people can find me on my website, fionaedgar.com. You can book an astrology reading from me, an ancestral path reading, or I'm actually a teacher of astrology, and you can become my student. I'm also on Telegram. I do frequent astrology voice clips on there. It's free. I'm also on Instagram, but it's nowhere near as juicy as Telegram. But that's pretty much it. Thanks for another excellent podcast, Tina. We'll hopefully be back again within a few weeks. If there's anything that you'd like us to talk about, you can drop us a comment and we'll consider it.
Definitely.
Okay. Bye for now.